Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series to take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video will be reviewing the item supplement 101 useful-ish magical items designed by Woodblaze for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your DM's Guild shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Shouts to my Platinum patrons, Andrew, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick R, Andy, Chris, Manuel, Basil, Nick C, and Travis. And Gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy Nima, Marcos Dade Vicente, Gilberto, Sean A.K. Cert, 2B, Adam, Dead Lizard, Lion, Sam, Arash, Limpy Spuds, Jerome, and Fatboy619. Thank you all very much for your support. Magic items. I like them, you like them, we all like them. This one in particular is done on the cheap. We'll say that. You know, I don't usually comment on price when it comes to DM's Guild products because that's a whole separate argument to be made, and products come in so many different shapes and sizes, and people have all kinds of different opinions on what stuff is worth, and so I often just don't comment on the price at all. This product is $1, so I'm going to comment on that, and the reason I'm commenting on it is because, you know, I've been very spoiled by having a lot of just really amazingly well-produced products of multiple teams putting together, like professional editing, artwork, the whole nine yards, just amazing. And this does not have any of that. I mean, it does have what looks like the standard, you know, D&D layout, which is the kind of parchment-style paper and the, you know, brown-colored headers and, you know, and the font, like all of that looks, so it's not like it's plain white or anything, so that part looks fine, but there's no artwork whatsoever. There's not even a cover page on the actual PDF, which is a bit of a bummer. The table of contents just kind of embedded in the paper. You know, a lot of it just doesn't really look too good. There's some grammatical errors and some formatting issues here and there, some missing words, that kind of thing. But it's done on the cheap. I mean, this is 101 items that are in 16 pages, and the reason you can do that is because you just kind of list them out like this. I do appreciate the way it's organized is actually by type, though. A lot of times they're organized by rarity, so it was nice to see that. However, on the flip side, we don't get rarity at all. We don't get rarity or attunement, which that is a huge red flag. And the weird thing is the designer actually mentions that in the introduction. It says, you will note I haven't included comments on rarity or cost. This is because it's up to you how you want to use these items in your own game. Well, yeah, it is, but it's up to you as the designer of these magic items to give me a proper rarity rating and attunement, because that's how you make magic items in D&D 5e. That's how you balance them. That's how the DM knows what power level this item is at, because a lot of these are pretty bizarre and in a good way, interesting, but I wouldn't know where to use them. And it's especially egregious because a lot of these items would actually work very well as the common level magic items, like that we see in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which are items which are magical in the technical sense, but don't actually confer any real like advantages or abilities. It's usually just kind of flavorful stuff or silly stuff, which, you know, players can appreciate, especially at lower levels, but like, in general, it's not going to upset the overall balance. So, let's see, what are some examples? Like the Amulet of Undoing that can untie any knot. That's just pretty silly. The Gloves of the Handstand that allow you to perform a perfect handstand for 10 minutes. Or how about the Slippers of the Goat, which just transforms your legs into the, you know, classic lower half hooved thing, which doesn't have any kind of actual mechanical changes. So those are examples of items that would be common level, and we really need that balancing mechanism in here to highlight the fact, because I think that is an important, that's something we don't get a lot of. The fact that they're in Xanathar's because we didn't get a lot of common magical items to begin with, which are those, you know, silly, goofy items. And this kind of silliness is actually an undercurrent throughout this entire supplement. A lot of these items, including a lot of the cursed items, which there are a lot of cursed items, have this just kind of undercurrent of humor. So for example, cursed items include the Lockpicks of Ineptitude, the Ring of Dysfunction, Potion of Flat Feet, Stone of Uncomfortable Silence, and the the dreaded wooden spoon of enmity, which is a cursed spoon that can attempt to possess a target who has eaten food it has seasoned. It's a evil sentient spoon that doesn't enjoy people not liking its cooking. The Stone of Uncomfortable Silence. You can use it to. It's like a luck stone. You can use it to reroll any roll, but anytime you're in conversation, you have to wait 5 seconds before responding. So you create those uncomfortable silences. So just very, very silly and goofy, but really interesting ideas too. Like, and even the actual better magic items have some really creative, inventive, and genuinely just interesting concepts, which I appreciate. You know, a lot of magic items are the typical, like, you know, fire sword or, you know, the usual stuff. And between the Dungeon Master's Guide, like, there's so many magic items in there that you really have to go kind of above and beyond to create something that's going to be more interesting and actually cause me to look at it and kind of cock an eyebrow and say, okay, that's kind of interesting. I haven't seen something like that before. The Quiver of the Plains is a cool idea, although, again, formatting issue, I don't know why it's done as percentages when literally just do a D100 table and list, you know, here's what you get on this roll. But that's the concept, is you pull out an arrow from this pocket dimension and you don't actually know what arrow you're going to get, which I think is really cool as a neat concept for a magic item. You actually have to roll to see what you're going to pull out. And occasionally you could just take damage, or so you could pull out nothing, which you missed, you lose your attack as a lower percent, or you could even take damage and you lose your attack, or you could summon a freaking shadow demon if you get the actual 99 to 100% roll. Again, I don't know why it's done as a percentage though. Just give me a D100 table. But it's a neat idea. In fact, there's a lot of these that are, there's an entire section of sheaths and holsters, which is not a word, words that you see often in the English language. They're very awkward sounding. Sheaths and holsters. Never see those as magic items. It's usually the weapons themselves, which there aren't actually a whole lot of weapons here. There's only like 2 or 3 swords total. There's a section on stabs and I think there's a few bows, but in general, these are more actual items, like amulets and rings and things. But I really love that you could have sheaths that actually give you magical effects depending on what kind of weapon that is stowed away in there. Especially like the Holster of Elemental Effects, which has different abilities depending on what you choose when you draw the weapon after holstering it in there, which is very cool. Let's see, what else did I like? Amulet of the Old Grey Wolf. Whenever you're attacked, I believe you can use your reaction to summon this wolf, which will incur disadvantage on the attacker or can catch a projectile in its mouth. But then once it's summoned, it's a spectral wolf, and it will pee on you, dealing 1d4 radiant damage and cause you to glow, which grants disadvantage on stealth checks for the next hour. That is just incredibly bizarre, but interestingly enough, as a weird quirk to that item to make me go, okay, that's interesting. That's something I haven't come across before. The short bow of the Vortex would give any DM an absolute headache. You can literally shoot arrows and create just rifts, portals, basically, and you can shoot 2 of them to create 2 portals that are connected to each other. So it's a damn portal gun from Portal, which would, I would think, absolutely break certain like dungeon designs and certain environmental hazards that DMs have set up. So maybe I would probably include some kind of a once per day balancing mechanism on that, or else have it be a very high level item. Again, we would need, we need the attunement and we need the rarity thing to help me as the DM look at these things and say how powerful these items and how often should I be rewarding them to the players. Give me some idea of balance, please. The Hat of Miniature Summoning lets you summon a creature, but it's at 1/4 of its size, which is really funny. The Triangle of Summoning, I love that idea because a triangle is, just ding, and then a creature flies out of there. It's a little familiar, which is pretty good. So there's a lot of really interesting ideas in here. The bummer is it's such a subdued product. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, so it's easy to pass something like this over. But I really think there's a lot of funny stuff in here. The actual cursed items seem a little bit on the cruel side, but used sparingly, I think they could be kind of fun. I think most players, or you would definitely teach your players to use Identify as much as possible, or Short Rest before trying to use said item. But I think there's some fun stuff in here that I would maybe even use a couple of these. That Quiver is a cool idea for sure. And it's a really good buy. Like, for not every product needs to be this insanely well produced gorgeous layout, multiple people working on it project. I love those projects for sure, and I love that it's kind of brought up the overall quality of things on the DM's Guild, but that doesn't mean you can't have, still really cheap stuff like this that is, most importantly, has good content in it. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. If good art can, elevate a mediocre product, but in general, if the product is still mediocre, it's going to be a hard sell. And this one, I think, is actually pretty decent, with the caveat that it really irritates me that we don't get the rarity listing or attunement here, because that is part of making magic items in 5e, damn it. All right, pros and cons for 101 magical-ish, or useful-ish magical items. Pros: creative and interesting magic items. Probably the biggest pro overall, but I think they're actually pretty good, generally. Pros: plenty of common level and somewhat silly magic items. So most importantly, for those looking for an expansion of Xanathar's Guide to Everything's list of common magic items that you could give out to low-level players, or just give out more vigorously in general compared to, actual magic items that kind of do more important things. And I think in the right hands, like, good players can have fun with cool, flavorful items, even if they don't do anything like, in combat or give any kind of skill advantages. So they're just fun to play with. And pros, again, I don't usually mention this, but this product is incredibly cheap. It's a very, very good buy. It's $1 when it's not on sale, so that's a very, very good buy. Cons: no rarity or attunement. Drives me crazy. If you're going to make magic items, you have to include that. That is part of creating a magic item, is to balance it to the rest of the universe. Con: no artwork whatsoever. Not even a cover page here, which is very odd. And cons is something I actually didn't mention in my review, but it's got really boring name conventions for all the items. So everything is kind of like a Diablo 1 style. It's boots of the blank, gloves of the blank, staff of the blank. Almost every single thing is like that. There's just not really a whole lot. Which, for the funny items, it kind of sounds funny. Wooden Spoon of Emnity, that's a funny damn. Stone of Uncomfortable Silence, that's funny. But for other ones, it's just, I don't know, it's not very interesting, I think, compared to what you could name a lot of these items, so that was a con. Final verdict: what it lacks in artwork and balancing, 101 useful-ish magical items makes up for with creative and funny magical items. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.